Welcome to the Small Company Check Register program. First, we will go into the Utilities section to reset a check number. After entering our check number, we click the OK button to save it. Next, we will go into the Databases section and enter a vendor in the Vendors section. We can click the Duplicate button to duplicate the Location Vendor section with the information from the Remit to Vendor section. Then we will click the OK button to save the record. And here is the record we just entered for Joe Test Vendor. We'll click that and the information shows up on the screen, as does the other records we have in the database. Next, we will go back into the Databases section and go into the Expense Codes database to enter an expense code. Here we have entered a test expense code, and we will click the OK button to save the record. And here is the test expense code record we entered. When we click it, it brings up the information in the screen, as it does for the other records in the expense codes database. Now we will go into the main area of the program, the checkbook section, and we'll go into the template to enter in a checkbook register record. Okay, we have entered in a checkbook register record for metal plating supplies, and this is for gold plating material, and the debit amount is $100. And we will click the OK button to save this record. And if we want to enter a new record, we would click the New button. This blanks out all the fields, and we can enter in the next record if we wish. Okay, here is the checkbook register record we just entered for Metal Plating Supplies Company. When we click that, it brings up the information as it does for the other records in the system. Now back to the Metal Plating Supplies Company record we just entered. If we wish to preview a check for this record, first we can type in a memo that will appear on the check. Then we can click the check button, and this will bring up the print preview of the check. This is divided into thirds. The first third is the actual check. It has the date of the check, the amount of the check, $100, the verbal amount, the payee, Metal Plating Supplies Company, and the memo we entered this as a test. And the second 1/3 and the third 1/3 are check stubs the recipient may retain for his records. And as in all the print preview screens, when we click on the printer button, it will bring up a printer setup dialog that precedes the actual printout. If we want to print the check register for a payment date range, we enter in a start date and an end date. In this case, it is March 1st, 2009 to March 15th, 2009. And if we don't specify a register vendor name, it will preview the checkbook register for all vendors. Now when we click the register button, it will bring up the print preview for the checkbook register. And you can see it has columns for date, check number, company, net debit amount, an amount for credit or deposit, and the running balance. Now let's say we pick a specific vendor. Let's say Metal Plating Supplies, and we click the register button. It brings up transactions for just the Metal Plating Supplies Company and whatever deposits or credits are in the checkbook. Now let's say we want to find a checkbook register record for a paid date of March 8th, 2009. So when I key that into the paid date field and click the Find Paid Date button, it scrolls to this record where a federal tax payment was made. And if I click the Reset button, this resets the search. Let's say I want to find a vendor for Metal Plating Supplies Company, and I click the Find Vendor button. It brings up the Metal Plating Supplies transaction we previously entered. I'll click the Reset button. Let's say I want to bring up the checkbook register record for check number 108. So I key that in next to check number, then I press the Find Check Number button, and it brings up a payment that was made for real estate taxes. Now let's say I want to replace this forward balance record. This has $5,000 for the forward balance. Let's say I want to change the balance forward cutoff date to March 6, 2009, and I want to make the balance forward amount $7,500. So I key that in, then I click the balance forward button, and the balance forward has been changed to $7,500, and the register balance arithmetic has been automatically adjusted with the current transactions in the checkbook register. Now let's say I want to print an envelope for this checkbook register record where a payment was made for the insurance bill. I would click the envelope button, and it would bring up a printer dialog screen that would precede the printout of the envelope. Now we're going to go back into the checkbook section and go into the screen for marking checks that have cleared the bank. This is a multiple select screen. You can select one or more than one records that you want to mark as the check having cleared the bank. And once you've selected your records, you click the Process Marked Vouchers button, and it automatically marks the selected records as checks which have cleared the bank. Now let's go into the reports section. We're going to run an expense listing report by check number. This screen has a pay date range and a starting and a check number range. We've specified March 1st, 2009 through March 15th, 2009 for the pay date range, and check number 100 through check number 107 for the check number range. And there's also a multiple select list box for the different expense codes that we can report for. Now we will click the OK button and it will print preview this report. And this expense code report by check number has columns for paid date, check number, vendor, expense code, invoice date, and total dollars. And you can see the input criteria at the top of the report. Now let's say we want to report for a specific vendor. Let's say we want to report for just the insurance company, with the other inputs for check number range and pay date range being the same. When we click the OK button, it previews just the check register record for the insurance company, where a payment of $40 was made on March 13th, 2009. Now, going back into the reports section, we're going to run an expense listing report by expense code. This is similar to the first report, except it uses an invoice date range and a paid date range and a detail or summary drop down. We've selected some expense codes on the multiple select box, or I should say multiple select listing box, and this is going to be a detail report for all vendors. So when I click the OK button, it will print preview. This report is grouped by expense code, and you can see the total is $405. This is a detailed version of the report, and you can see the inputs for invoice date range, paid date range, and vendor at the top of the report. Now if I run the same report for summary and click OK, you can see it has the same total of $405, but the expense codes are summarized. You don't have the breakout detail information you do on the first report. Now, going back to the detail version of the report, let's say I just want to run this for one vendor, let's say heating company. I click OK. It just reports for heating company for a total of $75. And when I go back in and change this to summary, it's the same thing, a total of $75. It just reports in a summary format using the input criteria, which is March 1st, 2009 through March 15th, 2009 for invoice date range, and March 1st, 2009 through March 15th, 2009 for paid date range, with heating company as the vendor. Now going back into reports, we have a simple reconciliation report for the checkbook register. I'll type in the ending balance of 0 and the register ending date of March 15th, 2009. And here is the preview of the report. It lists columns for starting balance, deposits, checks or withdrawals, and an ending balance. We have an uncleared checks listing report also in the reports section. This lists the check number, description, net debit, and the vendor. And these are the checks that have not been marked as being paid by the bank. And back into the reports section, we will run a listing of expense codes report. This is a very simple report that just lists all the expense codes that are in the system. There's the expense code, then the expense description. And we'll go into reports again. We will run a check register report by company and paid date range. I'm running this for a paid date range of March 1st, 2009 through March 15th, 2009 for all vendors. And this is a preview of the report. The columns are company, check number, net debit, amount credit or deposit, the expense code, and the invoice number. And if we want to run this for a specific vendor, let's say electricity company, click OK. It just reports for the one vendor that we selected. And that's the end of the small company check register program.